All right. Well, I got a Christmas card a couple years ago. I still have it up on the fridge. It had a picture of Jesus holding his cell phone and looking at his Twitter account. And it said 12 followers. Sweet. You know, so it's great to have anybody here today. And we got more than 12, so we're doing all right. Uh, so Christmas, look into this a little bit. We spent 4 weeks roughly trying to get ready, which is what Advent's all about. Trying to get ready for something big to happen, for some kind of burst of light. I mean, I had no idea when the historical Jesus was born. They put it in this time of the year because it's dark and it's cold, but it's mostly dark. And so light coming into the darkness, that whole image, so much about the Christian liturgical year is symbolic. It's trying to go deeper than just the surface of things. So we're preparing for this moment. And so I've got a triptych of poems for you today to take us into a contemplation. The first one is a work in progress. I've been working on this one for years. And you may have heard part of this before. It's called a perennial Christmas wish. What could I wish for you? Some of my, some of my best friends, what could I wish for you? So this is called a perennial Christmas wish. A perennial Christmas wish is just this: to give birth. The Great Spirit will not rest until this birth is happening in you. But don't get busy trying to make something happen. Just relax. Let go of your need to make something happen. Just sit down in silence each and every day and open your heart and breathe. Yes. Just sit down in silence each and every day. Open your heart and breathe. Yes. Yes to letting the Great Spirit midwife your subtle soul into being. This is not the whole point of your existence, but it is the place to start. I mean, if you're not being born, you're busy dying. It's not the whole point of your existence, but it is the place to start. Just sit down in silence each and every day. Open your heart and breathe. Yes. To letting the Great Spirit midwife your subtle soul into being. I mean, if you're not being born, you're busy dying. Yeah, that's one of my perennial Christmas wish for everybody, including myself. Yeah. So let me go back and just highlight a couple of things. The Great Spirit will not rest until this birth is happening in you. Okay? We're all meant to give birth to one person, ourself, what Martin called the true self. And it's a process. Anybody who has actually given physical birth, any of you women here will know, starts, goes for a period of time, 9 months perhaps. And boy, there's a lot of changes that go through those 9 months. I've lived through Pam giving birth to our 3 kids. And a lot of changes go through there. And so it's not like a one and done kind of process. It takes time. And, but the Great Spirit, the Spirit of life itself, wants this to happen. And as it say later in the poem, just say yes to letting the Great Spirit midwife the whole process. Yeah. And so these are also reflections on what we're going to do in a few minutes when we sit in silent contemplation. Don't get busy trying to make something happen. You can't hurry a pregnancy along, and you can't hurry a birth along. And so this applies also to the time we sit in silence in contemplation. Don't try to make anything happen. It is happening. Okay. Just relax. That's one of the best teachings I ever got from the Tibetans. One Tibetan master gave a retreat in Germany. It was a 4-day retreat, and he came out. Everybody was waiting to sit with this great master, and he just had the bell, and he just said, "Relax." And then, sat there for about 45 minutes, and then he hit the bell and bowed and left. And, people had paid a lot of money for this, and they were wondering about this. And so then the next appointed time of sitting, they came, and he was smiling and, radiating a kind of really deep presence. Hit the bell again, relax, But that time, some people were thinking about asking, there was grumbling, we want the teachings. We want the teachings. That was the teaching. And so some people left disgruntled, but some people stayed. And as he continued with that one word, relax, did it. Some people, for the first time in their life, just sat and relaxed. And most of them I wasn't there, but I know somebody wasn't, but almost everybody was glowing with a different kind of light because they just relaxed into it. They let go of their need to make something happen. That's one of the hardest things to do in meditation. But meditation is sort of like one of those Chinese finger puzzles. Put your finger in each end, and the harder you try to pull one out, the tighter the grip gets. And the way to do is relax and actually push into it. Relax your finger and then just go towards the center. And then you can. Yeah, it is a kind of Chinese finger puzzle, this thing called contemplation or meditation. So relax, sit down in silence. Just this yes is the yes that we started with 4 weeks ago, Mary. Just, okay, I don't understand what I'm doing here, but I'm trusting you. Yes, okay. Trusting that I'm not doing this, but that you're going to help me. That's what a midwife does. I talked to somebody yesterday, and they said, well, when I come back in the next life, I'm going to be some kind of midwife, maybe in the physical realm, maybe in the spiritual realm. Thank God for the midwives. I'm looking at my altar over here. Dalai Lama, Merton, my grandmother, Jesus, Rumi, Pema, Cynthia Bourgeot. These have all been spiritual midwives for me. They've delivered me past obstacles in myself. So this is a real thing. And then the last thing is, to midwife your subtle soul into being. The soul is the most subtle part of consciousness. And the soul is your true self. The soul is who you're meant to be in this world. So subtle, you can't just get to it with the thinking mind. And it has to be delivered. So the thing we can do is relax and allow the spirit to deliver this. Mm-hmm. You showed up today. That took effort. When you show up for this rendezvous, what I call the rendezvous with the sacred, that's the effort. And after that, effort gets in the way, but showing up. So it's this always a paradox of, it takes effort to show up, but then once you go into listening with the ear of the heart into the contemplation, it has to be utterly relaxed, see. And then the last line, this is not the whole point of your existence, but is the place to start. I mean, if you're not being born, you're busy dying. That's what Blake meant when he said it is possible for human men and women to become younger and younger and younger towards death. He was the one who coined that phrase. Well, what does that mean? To become younger and younger and younger towards death? Not talking about some fancy, cryonics or any kind of fancy things. It just means there's nothing younger than what you're birthing in this moment. Nothing younger than, your true self, because it's waiting to be born, you see. If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. Yeah, so that's the opening kind of salvo. I'm starting in the beginning of the new year to do my third long journey through the 114 logons. Logon is the Greek word for saying. There's 114 sayings by Jesus that was heard by Thomas. So this is called the Gospel of Thomas, or sometimes the fifth gospel. It's quite a journey because it's a different Jesus. There's no scenario. There's no story, no narrative like in the other ones. Although there's not much of a narrative in John, it's mostly like Jesus preaching. But they all have their strengths. I love them all. But the Gospel of Thomas is something special because it's totally different Jesus. And as a matter of fact, many of the sayings start with Yeshua says. Yeshua was actually Jesus's name, and Jesus is the Greek translation of Yeshua. Yeshua. So you get a feel. It's a Jesus I fell in love with about 20 years ago, the Aramaic Jesus, maybe a little closer to the original. And so here's number 70 out of the 114. Number 70 fits right into what we're talking about. Yeshua says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. That's a different flavor of different Jesus. And he's saying this is serious business here. We're talking about life and death. They were all looking for Jesus to save him, maybe most of all Thomas. And so that's why Thomas heard it. Maybe just Jesus walking along the road with him. Maybe nobody else heard it. They did a lot of time on the road. And Jesus never, he didn't have a house to be born in. He was a refugee. Imperial Roman power made him go to another city to sign up and pay their tax, and no room in the inn. So these were unhoused refugees in a way, in a country that was ruled by somebody, not their own people. And then he never really had a home in his adult life during his ministry. He was doing what we would call now couch surfing. There were no couches. Maybe he had a roof over his head some of the time. So he lived with that kind of, and that's why he always had a feeling for the poor. Most of the people who heard Jesus's message didn't have anything either. And it's why it's a little hard to tune into this message in a culture like ours. We're the most affluent cultures ever lived in this country, America. So he's talking about life and death here. If you bring forth what is within you, he throws it back on Tom. He said, don't look to me. He says, you have it in you, which was radical. That's what got Jesus in trouble. The ultimate death sentences by the Jewish Sanhedrin was, he was claiming that he had the Holy One inside him. They called that blasphemy. And by their rules, it was. He said, no, you have everything you need inside you. Don't look at me. He said, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth, he laid it on you. It's your job. And that'll save you. That's what he called salvation. That's what he called the kingdom of heaven. That's why he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. It is among you. In other words, it's not later. And the work is ahead right now, this now, right now. And he said, but if you do not do this work, this unstillborn, it will destroy you. Just as sometimes stillbirths, unless they can take the life of the mother. But this is also 2,000 years before Freud. It's a beautiful view of what psychotherapy is. They didn't have the understanding of the psyche and the consciousness that we do now, but Jesus had it, because that's exactly should be on. I mean, there's one therapist who shows up here sometimes, Scott. He has that. I don't know if he has it up in his office, but he took that to heart. If you bring forth what is within you, because here you are, you and your therapist. If you're waiting for the therapist to make you whole, good therapist is going to say, no, you bring forth what is with you. You got to do the work, and it's in there. That's the promise, that it's in there. That it's in there. Yeah. Here's another one that just came up this morning. Just penned it this morning, and it follows on this. Light in the darkness. This morning, even in the daylight, when Pam got on, she turned on the lights out in the bushes. Okay, because this is the time of light. Christmas tree all lit up. This goes way back into old times, way even before Christmas in some parts of the world. This time of light in the darkness. The light of Christmas is an explosion. It's a symbol of an explosion of insight that illuminates your hidden wholeness. This is a kind of implosion, if you will, when you have insight that you've got what it takes. Jesus was telling everybody that. And that's why it was bad for business up at the temple. Because at the temple, you had to show up and donate a dove or lamb or goat or a bullock, depending on, to get, your blessing. And he's saying, no, it's already in you. It'd be like somebody giving away furniture outside of Walmart. They'd probably arrest him, because the game is you got to come in and pay. And he's saying, no, that game's over. The light of Christmas is the explosion of insight. We really have a ways to go, because now as we're at the Christmas season, we go all the way through the Epiphany. Okay, the Epiphany was when these Eastern mystics, three wise men, following a star, explosion of light, they see this in this refugee couple and this little baby, Gustavo Gutierrez, a liberation theologian, Dominican, who's living out his life at Notre Dame. He said, when all this was happening, he says, imagine all this happening with the smell of horse shit there. He said, what a paradox, this ultimate revelation. And there's, the animals in the stable. Yeah. So this is about, Christmas is calling you to have this implosion of insight to where you start to see into the darkness of your own self. And we all have darkness. We all have wounds. We all have things we learned that block the light. Jesus is one of Jesus' favorite metaphors was, how come you put a bushel basket over your lamp? See, the light is there. Some people who could do very evil things in this world, who do, they got a lot of bushel baskets, dirt, horse shit. The light is there, you see. It is there in everybody. The worst person in the world, you name your candidate for that, they have this same wholeness, but it's well hidden under layers and layers, veils and veils, baskets and baskets. You see, we're all like that. When we work spiritually together and alone and together, we're lifting those veils. We're digging away. It's like a kind of spiritual archaeology where we're trying to find something, you see. Okay. Now this last poem, and then we'll lead us to the sitting. This is a poem I've been working on now for about 3 months. And it actually started last winter when I went to Centering Prayer Retreat at Loretto. I'm going back this year too. And they put me in the corner room, which was called the Ladybug and the Wasp room because it got the most sun, but there were ladybugs and wasps on, I had to keep collecting the dead wasps and stuff. Yeah, but it had a quote by Merton, some lines from a poem, and it just became the focus for the whole thing. And so I adapted those lines for this poem that I call The Rendezvous. So, contemplation, when you sit to do your formal contemplation, it is a formal rendezvous between you and the sacred. And Merton always saw contemplation as a call and response. There's a call. The call is always there. It's like these things we send into outer space that are broadcasting, friend and all these languages, just going. The sacred is always calling you to, hey, take a pause, sit down. Let's get to know one another here. And the rendezvous, I love that, the French word there, because it just really means you show up for your appointment. So it's a call. And how do we respond? So it's a call and response. So the call part of this poem is adapted from that Merton poem. But the response, I finally finished it this morning, is I came in here to sit with Jan and all her family and Jim, and I'll continue to sit with them for the 49 days, ritual grieving, and where you help the person who's crossed this threshold. And Tibetans have this ballpark figure based on 700 years of collecting data from people who came back. They crossed the threshold sometimes for days, and then they got revivified. And then they said, well, what was it like? And so that was with them in all their monasteries, were all this scientific data about what it might be like if you crossed that threshold. That's where the Tibetan Book of the Dead came from. Some of you have studied the modern version of that. So, they got glimpses of this. And they said it's really helpful to journey with these people and send them love and send them light, because sometimes it can get a little dark and strange. They've never been that way before. Yeah. So the ending of this, the response to this, I finally got the lines that I wanted for the response. So this is called The Rendezvous, a call and response. And then when you show up, like in a minute, when I end the recording and we just go into contemplation. This is, you imagine Merton talking to you now, and this is the call through the words of Merton. He says, make ready for the sacred, whose smile like lightning awakens the song of everlasting healing that now sleeps in your paper flesh like dynamite. Make ready for the sacred, whose smile like lightning, smile like lightning, awakens the song of everlasting healing that now sleeps in your paper flesh like dynamite. That's the call. Words of Merton. Make ready for the sacred, who smile like lightning, who smile like the lightning, awakens the song of everlasting healing. That's a very interesting image, that in you is a song of everlasting healing. Jim in the end couldn't be cured. In the end, all of us will graduate from this incarnation, something, in most cases, some illness that could not be cured. but there's a deeper level. In each of us is a song of everlasting healing that now sleeps in our paper flesh. I love that image of Merton's, of paper flesh. It's so delicate. It's so insubstantial in a way, yet so brilliant. 73 years. You know, from, it's amazing. But he said, that now this song sleeps. Now it sleeps in your paper flesh like dynamite. In other words, this song of everlasting healing has an explosive, a powerful potential. And the smile is like lightning, the smile of the sacred, boom. What will ignite it? Then you don't have to wait to die and go to heaven to heal. Healing is a long process. Healing means becoming whole, you see. So he says, get ready. And then the response, yes. I said, yes. I said, yes to the hidden wholeness. When you say yes, you're banking on the fact that this hidden wholeness, that's also a Merton term, is well hidden. This idea of whole, totally connected, nothing left out. We all have this feeling of lack, and we're looking around for it all through life. It's an illusion. And when you go in and you make this rendezvous on a regular basis, at some point, more and more comes together. Not at first. Yeah. And the hidden wholeness is illuminated. And you stop looking. You shift gears into postgraduate school, communion of saints that the Catholics and the Tibetans talk about in their own way, where you can be a beacon for other people. Yeah, just being in your presence, just, being in the presence of some person who's made this trip gives you hope that you can do it. So, all right, well, I'm going to end the recording, and then we'll make ready. So make ready yourself right now.